This is Vital Signs, coming to you from the Loma Linda University School of Medicine. I'm Dusty Rigsby.
And I'm Bonnie Chi Lum. Welcome to a fascinating half hour that will take you from Mound City to Pakistan and back again.
Mound City?
Yes, Mound City. That's what they used to call Loma Linda.
Huh. Historian Richard Schaefer will take us back to those early days. We'll also meet the pioneers of Loma Linda's famous Heart Team.
So don't touch that remote. You don't want to miss this edition of Vital Signs.
We see Richard Schaefer from week to week in our Heritage Snapshot features, but this time we have him with us here in our studio. Welcome to Vital Signs, Dick.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
It's a delight to have you. Can you tell us about the Mound City property about 1900 and what was happening?
Okay, in 1900, the Loma Linda Association, a group of 80 physicians and 40 businessmen, purchased the Mound City Villa, and they tried to turn it into a sanitarium. And that's the property that we purchased in 1905 and really did turn it into a sanitarium.
Now, you mentioned here that we purchased it. Who was in charge of purchasing it, and why were we interested in this particular area?
Well, John Burden was charged by Ellen G. White to look for property between Riverside, San Bernardino, and Redlands. Okay. Loma Linda was actually found by a man named Ballinger, who was the minister of the Redlands Seventh-day Adventist Church. He was, quotes, one of those entrusted to look. He gave it to Burden to evaluate for Mrs. White.
Okay. And how much did they purchase this whole property for, and how large was the property?
The property was 76 acres. It included a luxury hotel, had 64 rooms, was lighted with electricity, was heated with steam. There was about a mile of concrete sidewalks. There was an abundance of water and canaries in the pepper trees. It represented an investment of $155,000. And we eventually bought it for $38,900.
And how did they manage that? How come the asking price seemed so much and they were able to get it for a lot less?
Well, back in the fall of 1902, Ellen White had one of her 2,000 dreamlike experiences. These were so vivid to her that she was able to write to church leaders later and tell them that we would be able to purchase property in Southern California, unoccupied land, that could be used as sanitariums for much less than their original cost. So this fit right into that, was a fulfillment of that prophecy.
How was the first $5,000 raised for the project?
Well, on Thursday, May 25, John Burden and his colleague, Elder Roderick S. Owen, heard about a farmer named Larson who lived in Los Angeles, and that he might have some money that he would be willing to donate. So they went to Larson's home, and he wasn't there. So they went back to the electric train, and they failed to flag it down. So they decided to go back and see if Larson was there. Larson was there. They made the appeal. He said, "Praise God." He said, "I just sold my land. I have money in the bank, and the devil is tempting me to reinvest it in more land." And he gave them $2,400. And from that $2,400 is where the $1,000 down payment came from. Then there was a lady named Belle Baker who donated another $1,000. And we're not told where the final $1,600 came from, but we're told that Roderick Owen was willing to mortgage his home, but that wasn't necessary. That's where the first $5,000 came from.
That sounds like a lot of effort for $5,000. They had to raise $38,000. Where did the next bit of money come from?
Well, finally, the conference committee of the church got behind the project. They were meeting in Los Angeles on the deadline day of the first $5,000 payment. They didn't have any of it. And it was very tense. In fact, there were two camps of people there. There were people who said, we need to go forward in faith, and there were other people who said, we don't have any money. They needed $5,000 in 4 hours, and that would be worth $100,000 today, and they didn't have any of it.
Yeah.
I wondered, why did Mrs. White keep pushing under these circumstances? And it goes back to a dreamlike experience she had in October of 1901. This is documented. She wrote in her journal, "I seemed to be living there. I saw patients sitting in wheelchairs under giant shade trees that seemed to form a tent-like canopy." Because the other two sanitariums, Glendale and Paradise Valley, did not have a tent-like canopy of trees, she kept looking for a third place. And I wondered, why did John Burden keep pushing? And it's because Ellen White told him to go ahead. She said that money would come from unexpected sources. Well, someone suggested they wait for the morning mail. In the morning mail was a letter from a woman in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Nobody out here knew who that woman was. Her letter was mailed at least weeks in advance. It had traveled completely across the continent in 1905, and inside was a bank draft for $5,000, the exact amount that was needed on that deadline day 4 hours later. They say there wasn't a dry eye in the place. In fact, one of the critics came up to John Burden. He said, "It seems the Lord is in this project." Burden said, "Yes, and he will carry it through to victory." And that's exactly what happened, because instead of paying for Loma Linda in 3 years and 8 months, we paid for it in less than 6 months, received 2 additional discounts totaling $1,100. The original purchase price of Loma Linda was $38,900, much less than its original cost, money from an unexpected source for unoccupied property in Southern California that had a tent-like canopy of trees. Praise God, 5 out of 5. That is statistically significant, we believe, under these circumstances, miraculous.
Richard, thank you so much for being with us here in the studio. And we'll be right back with more.
For the Seventh-day Adventist Church to have a fully accredited academic medical health sciences university with, a dental school and a medical school as its flagships is remarkable. A God-given thing, really, is what it is.
I have this connection with Loma Linda. I really love where I work, and I really love the people I work with. So it's nice to know how it all started.
Loma Linda shares a special history, and it has a mission that I believe is in tune with my own.
I think what's really impacted me is because I've been here quite a few years, to hear the stories of not only the past and the history of the over 100 years, but when I hear about new things that we're doing.
In one way, you are at a place that has a sense of history and a connection to a church who has a unique mission.
It makes me feel like it's now my responsibility to carry on this mission.
We're back with more Vital Signs. It's a real privilege for us to welcome Dr. Joan Coggin and Dr. Ellsworth Wareham to our studio. These two veteran physicians with skill, innovation, and vision gave life to Loma Linda's International Heart Team. Welcome, Dr. Coggin. Welcome, Dr. Wareham.
Thank you.
It's nice to have you both in our studio.
Thank you.
Can you tell us about the genesis of the Overseas Heart Surgery Team?
Well, in the very early days, we had to take our equipment with us from the White Memorial Hospital to the LA County General Hospital, a mile away, and had to load all of this into the very large trunk of Dr. Wareham's car. And we took with us everything that we needed and went the mile and then returned. While we were doing this, we thought, wouldn't it be great if we could, go to some place where they really were desperate for surgery and it wasn't being done, And if we could move it a mile, we could move it thousands of miles. And so we would work on the idea of what we would take and how we would do this. It was sort of like a game. Meanwhile, in Pakistan, Mr. Zafar read in the Signs of the Times that had been sent to him about surgery was available for certain children who had congenital heart disease. And he was ecstatic because his little girl had been told that nothing could help her in Pakistan. There was no help available. And then through a series of events, he wrote to the editor of the Signs of the Time, and eventually the request came to the White Memorial Hospital, to Dr. Wareham and Dr. Woolley, and they said, we'd be happy to operate on her without charge, and the hospital said we would do that also. That's not the case today, but then it happened, and but they could not provide the transportation. And so the father remembered about the camel driver that had come to the United States because Vice President Johnson had said to him, you know, you all come visit me sometime on my ranch. And he had come, and there was a lot of publicity in the U.S. and in Karachi. So Mr. Zafar, a man of action, contacted Vice President Johnson. He arranged for transportation. The child came to the White Memorial with the parents, was operated, greatly improved, went home pink instead of blue. Big news in Karachi. And the following morning, a huge line of children with their parents. They were circling the U.S. Embassy. So in desperation, the embassy called the Karachi Adventist Hospital and said, we don't know what to do. And Dr. Weaver, the surgeon there, suggested, why don't you see if the team will come over here? And so what happened next?
Well, one morning when I was shaving, my wife said the office of the Vice President of the United States is on the telephone. I thought this was some sort of a practical joke and wasn't taking it very seriously, so I just went to the phone and I said, hello. And they said, this is the office of the Vice President of the United States, and Vice President Johnson wants to know if you would be willing to take a heart surgery team to Karachi and do open heart surgery if the transportation was provided. And so I told him I thought that could be arranged, and so that's how it was that we went.
How many were on the team at that time?
There were 6 of us who were on the medical team, and we had a public relations person, making it 7.
And how many heart surgeries did you perform on that first trip?
44. And we did that with a mortality of 1, which is a fairly good achievement even in present-day technology. So things went very, very well.
What did you learn from that first trip?
Well, we learned that you can operate under quite primitive conditions with a minimum staff, and that you can use the staff of the hospital where you go, and they learn quickly. And these people did well, as the figures show.
So how many trips has the heart team completed altogether?
Well, we've gone through the years to 17 different countries and approximately 60 different trips.
The second trip that we took was to Greece, and this had also a relationship to the Signs of the Times. Did you bring that issue along?
Just happened to have it with me.
Mr. Wiley, who was then a public relations man, wrote an article about our trip to Pakistan.
Well, there was a pediatric cardiologist at UCLA who was Greek. Consequently, there were many Greek children sent there for surgery. And one of the volunteers there was a woman by the name of Mrs. Weiler, and she would talk to the parents. I mean, she didn't speak Greek, but she'd talk to the parents, and this was sort of her assignment. Several times, some of these children died, and it was terrible because they were far away from home. Even if their parents were with them, they didn't understand the language, they didn't like the food, and it was a difficult situation. And she was working with the Greek Orthodox Church because they were helping to bring the patients over. Well, she went to her physiotherapist, and she was late because she'd come from a funeral of one of these children at St. Sophia's Cathedral in Los Angeles. And so she got to her physiotherapist in Westwood, and the woman said, "I'm so sorry." She said, "I'm running behind too." And she says, "Maybe you'd like to read this while you're waiting." And she gave her this copy, not this copy, but this issue of the Signs of the Time, in which it had the pictures and the story of our trip to Pakistan. And as this woman read this, she thought, oh, if they could only do that in Greece, how wonderful it would be. And so she, working with the priest from the St. Sophia's, they started this as a project.
Well, the Greek Orthodox priest, Father Kalilis, called me up and asked if we would go to Greece. And the Greek Orthodox Church, through their philanthropic arm, the Philopticus, provided the expenses. And so that's the way we got started in Greece. So both the Pakistan trip and the Greek trip got started as a result of the Signs of the Times.
Well, that is so interesting. I'm amazed that you still have the copy of the Signs of the Times. I want to thank both of you, Dr. Wareham, Dr. Coggan, for joining us here in our studios.
And just ahead, another chapter in our student life documentary, right after this short break.
So I'm basically going to Student Lounge to see, check my student mailbox to see how I scored on my surgery grades. So may like it, may not like it, but you know, what can I do? One thing I was happy with during my eval, where my attending was talking to me, is that, you know, he asked me what I wanted to go into, and I told him orthopedics. And usually, a lot of general surgeons kind of tend to not like when students say that because it's so different from general surgery. So, you know, so I said, and I hope that you can still look at me after I said that, you know. He's like, no. He's like, I mean, I know that general surgery is not for everybody. You know, what's important is that you, you know, find what you love to do. Another attending at Arrowhead that I said that I wanted to go into orthopedics to, he just looked at me and walked away. So I was like, well,
All right, so it sounds like your breastfeeding is going well.
So once I kind of decided that I didn't want to do surgery, it was down to OB-GYN and pediatrics. During third year, it was between those two, and I did my pediatric rotation. And I remember driving home one day and thinking, I love this. Like, I really love this. And I had a little girl with cerebral palsy, and she could say, no, mama, and I love you. And that was pretty much her vocabulary. I think she was 4 or something. And we were evaluating her for a walker. So the mom was on one side of the room and I was sitting on the other side, crouched down, and we were watching her walk between the two of us. And every time she got to me, she'd give me a huge hug and say, I love you. And I know it was one of the phrases that she said, but I just want to be like, I love you too. I haven't had that kind of feeling towards many of the other patients as much as I've had for pediatrics. When I did OB, I thought it was really neat, and it's amazing. I mean, birth is amazing. But after the kid was born, I wanted to be with the kid more than I wanted to be with the mom. And that's more pediatrics.
I love this little gown you have. Oh yeah, she's yellow. Look at her.
When I initially came into med school, I wanted to do peds. And when I did OB, the chief resident was like, all right, who wants to go into a C-section? I wanted to raise my hand so quickly, but I was like, okay, just act calm. Looked around to the side. I was like, no one's raising a hand, me! And so I got to go in, and then it was just awesome. And that same lady, I even see her sometimes like at church or around campus. And I see the little girl, she's so cute.
Even starting third year and starting my surgery rotation, that's really what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a general surgeon. It wasn't until I actually did general surgery that I realized, well, I don't like all the aspects of what general surgeons do. Particularly, I don't like the fact that they operate on bowel. And so I said, well, I know I want to be a surgeon, but I got to figure out what I want to cut on. You know, that's important. And so after doing my 1 week of orthopedic surgery, I was like, man, this is amazing. I love orthopedics. And I like the fact that I can use a hammer and a drill, and people are better after I do it, you know? Like, people can actually walk and they're happy, you know?
I loved it. Honestly, like, I haven't done anything else so far third year that really I enjoy doing. Like, I'll wake up every morning and say, man, I'm really glad I had to put on my white coat and go in. Like, all the other stuff is kind of like I'm just going through the motions, but this I really enjoy.
Hi, Mrs. Woodard. Hi, I'm Mark Warren. You know, Ellen White talks about how 9/10 of all disease originates in the mind. You know, looking at my patients, all of them had some sort of psychological baggage that they were carrying as well, either sort of causing the illness or as a result of the illness.
And I just want a cigarette. And I'd start smoking a lot.
I saw that psychiatry could really be an avenue to help people more than just through a bout of pneumonia or through a crisis with blood sugar. And I was interested in that, the power of psychiatry in that sense, sort of helping people to see why they do what they do and help to work on those decision processes. It's one of those unique fields where you can kind of have a lot of time for your family, which is really kind of where I'm at right now. I kind of can't get enough time with my family.
A lot of people don't like the lifestyle that surgeons have to live, but they love the surgeries. And I think that's what gets, you know, people. Like, I don't think I'm necessarily someone who likes to be away from my wife and who, like, you know, likes to be, you know, gone all day, but like, if I gotta think of something that I'm waking up every morning to do, it's gotta be operating.
When I was little, I thought, I want to be a doctor. And then I got to college and I thought, I want to be a pediatric reconstructive surgeon. And I got to medical school and I realized, that is a really big time commitment.
It's actually really scary, you know, thinking about how a career can envelop so much of your being.
Choosing pediatrics was a lot of pressure. That was, what am I going to do for the rest of my life?
A lot of the guys who are sometimes at the top of their fields in medicine, they're revered and they're, you know, respected, but oftentimes their families are kind of, they don't know their families that well. And, you know, I had those ambitions to be that guy, but I also know that like there's no need to get married and, you know, like throw my wife and my kids on the wayside.
I'm not sure I could give my life to pediatric reconstructive surgery, like my whole life. And I think to be a good one for me, I would have had to do that. And being a physician, there is a lot of sacrifice anyway in your personal life, but I think pediatrics in general would be less of a sacrifice than if I had done pediatric reconstructive surgery.
At the end of it, like, you have a new life. It's not like some other specialties where it seems like your treatment for the patient just never ends. It's like the lady comes in pregnant, you need to do something. What do you need to do? Make sure that she's healthy, make sure the baby's healthy. Because when she is about to deliver, you want her to be in good health. So the baby comes out, breathe, wah, wah. Your job is done.
You can wear really bright colors, you can get on the ground and play with the kids, and it's perfectly acceptable, it's wanted. Should I put it here? On your shirt? On the hand? On the hand. That's okay, we'll do it on the hand.
I know I would be happy doing it. Whether it's attainable is a whole nother question, because a lot of people like orthopedics, the field of orthopedics, and there are a lot of smart medical students out there.
Yeah, it's not bad. Pretty happy with my grade, but I think I'll only be happy in the end once I see what everyone else got, so I can see like whether that means I did better than them or not. That's the problem. Like, you have to. It's not just your grade, but it's how you're compared to your classmates. So see how that goes. You didn't give me the highest rating that you possibly could, but I got right under that. And so for someone that wants to go into surgery, that's important. Sometimes they won't even look at your application if it's below a certain score. And so it can be kind of stressful, but in all that, I realized in the end that it was God that got me into Loma Linda. And so in the same way, I'm doing all that I can, but I'm trying not to think that it'll be all about what I do that gets me into the residency that I need to be at. I know it's gonna be God, but I have to remind myself of that every day.
We'd like to give a special thanks to those amazing students and to all our guests today.
Before we go, here's a question for you. In 1920, which nearby medical school closed and sent its junior and senior students to the College of Medical Evangelists?
Watch for the answer on the screen in just a minute.
Join us again next time when new technologies will be front and center on Vital Signs.
Our Heritage Snapshot will feature hydrotherapy and how it saved a boy from a lifelong disability.
And there will be another exciting look at student life here at Loma Linda University School of Medicine.